Okay, so, sorry, it's a little cold out here. Just finished watching a show called Automata on Tubi. You'll find the link in the description. And I call it a show, though it's set up as a film, but as I understand it, and as it's presented on Tubi, it appears to be a television season that was edited into a film. And it's about a 51 minute piece as it is, credits and all. Something created by something called Dust Studios, or Dust Pictures, whatever they're called. Never heard of them. Apparently they were a streaming thing. I don't know if they're even still operative. But assuming this is an independent studio, impressive work for an independent studio. Automata is set in kind of an alternate reality 1920s. Which kind of begs a little bit more background than they give in the show. But it's actually not a bad show. There's a little bit of... It's a little hard to suspend your disbelief at the beginning, so I did take marks off for that. Like, I don't usually give my out of 10 this early in the video. But at this point, it's a 5-6 out of 10. And that's only partly for the difficulty in the acceptability of the world as it was built. All that said, I do apologize, I'm not long out of bed. It's rather cold today, so I did lay back down to keep warm while I was watching the movie. Stop. There we go. One of the things that I did really like, and Doug Jones provides the voice for Carl Swanji, which is one of the automata, one of the robots in the film. And I'm going to be kind of swinging back and forth between that 5 and 6, and it may even drop to a 4 as I'm forming my opinion. I literally just finished watching this, so it's kind of still percolating. But it's a 1920s where Prohibition has just been enacted. And the thing they're prohibiting is not alcohol. It's what appear to be some form of sentient machine. There's no indication of who built them beyond the name of the main character's partner, Carl Swanji. Swanji appears to be a sort of model type similar to Chevrolet or whatever. I get the impression that they were named for the company that created them. And as I said, the prohibition now is on building new ones. There's no indication of how many exist. There's only one that has blue eyes that I noticed. That I noticed. The aesthetic is very 1920s. It's very well done, set dressing, things like that. Everything is quite nice. There's nothing glaring in terms of continuity. The world building on the front end could have used a little more work. And the automatons are being used as a very clear analogy for racism, or potentially transphobia, whatever. So that that part of the storytelling is very woke. The main actor, Basil Harris, I'm fairly certain I've seen him in other things. Can't place him. Didn't really do any real amount of research to see what I had seen him in. I think the biggest name associated with this is Doug Jones. But the dialogue is very, well, I wouldn't say very well written, but it's in that 20s gangster shtick sort of yeah, see, yeah, kind of vein. And it's actually quite good. The acting is not bad. It's a bit jarring at first to hear someone getting into the role. It feels like Harris may have been a little under-prepared, under-rehearsed for the earliest scenes. So I'm thinking they probably shot this in order. And initially, a lot of the dialogue with that accent is very over the top. Some of it is a bit ham-fisted. But that comes down to the talent of the actors more than the talent of the writing team. It's pretty well written, surprisingly. But now that I'm thinking about it, I want to knock a point off for the way the ending was set up. It wasn't super great. It was a little bit, ironically, Deus Ex Machina. A little too tell, don't show. Though they do show, they kind of show in retrospect, and yeah, it's a little clunky. But not bad. And that's why I'm keeping it kind of around 5-6. It's not bad enough for me to really call it bad. Initially, it's... Get through the first 10 minutes, and it'll have you hooked. I'll give you that. They do have a little bit of a historical fiction angle in the use of the Luddites, though they don't really... The leader of the Luddites is a clear Hitler stand-in. So in the scenes that have the Luddites kind of prominent, the wokeness kind of does come to the fore quite a lot more. But it is a very well written, very well directed piece. The acting, these are, by and large, low profile actors. They're not big names by any means, Doug Jones being the exception, of course. Though I suspect he probably read all of his lines in a studio somewhere very comfortably, and had loads of time to do each take as he wished. The budget on this, I would say it's probably a middle budget. Somewhere not quite B-level. Or if it is B-level budget, it's very well used budgeting. This doesn't feel like something that the studio was very, very, very hands-on to the point of interfering with. This feels like the director had a lot of freedom to do the film that he wanted to do. Script is pretty tight. It's, like I said, it's a 50-minute film. And I don't think there's a single real scene that could have been cut out. The little bit of action that occurs is actually quite good. There's some CGI, but it's pretty subtle, pretty well done. Again, probably because they have a low budget and didn't do a lot of CGI. A lot of practical is in this. One of the things that hangs me up is the technology is far beyond anything of the time, and there's just no explanation for why. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there is, actually, now that I'm thinking on it, there is a glaring issue with one piece of technology. You have these ultra-advanced robotic sapients, the Automata, and yet they're driving around in the same sort of cars, they're using the same sort of recording equipment, or musical equipment, sound reproduction equipment, like a Victrola, or that style of player anyway. Yet it's very clear from one point in the show where there is a reproduction image used on paper, or what appears to be paper at least, which is clearly a digital photograph, digital quality, that sort of resolution that we have today. And yet the various means for that production are not shown. We have no idea if they had to go to some corner store to have this printed out. There is very good quality reproduction of sound produced by the Automata. It's, again, this is kind of an issue with suspension of disbelief, but it's a unique world. I'll give it that. It's a very unique world. I like it. I do like it. The blended technology levels kind of make it hard to kind of buy into, because it starts to reach almost the realm of fantasy. It's almost magical with the technology that goes into these automata. But it's, I mean, if you can put that aside, it's very good. With, yeah, if they had done just a touch more world building at the beginning, like 5 more minutes even, which would have been a tenth of the show, so I kind of understand why they didn't. They wanted to tell the story. They didn't want to get bogged down in the details, which, fair. But yeah, leaving out that particular portion of it, the difficulty with the suspension of disbelief, this show probably comes up to a 7 or even an 8 in my estimation. But as it is with the wokeness and the difficulty with suspension of disbelief, it's more along the lines of a 5 or a 6. Still, not a bad show. If it was bad, to the point that I would recommend you avoid watching it, I'd be down around a 2 or a 3. I'm very interested to see what else Dust Studios has produced. I had a lot of trouble tracking down what was Dust, and the best I could find is that it appears to be an independent studio. I found a Facebook page. It was extremely difficult to find anything on Wikipedia about this. But yeah, I would recommend watching it. It's definitely unique. And, you know, the dialogue is period correct. There's nothing that I can think of that is glaringly beyond or outside the realm of what would have been said in that era. So the show bills itself as a combination of hard-boiled detective and sci-fi show. Yeah, I would say that. And accomplished fairly well, actually. Now, again, I'm not a screenwriter by any means, so perhaps someone else, Tony D, Critical Drinker, any of these guys, they might tear this absolutely apart. But as an everyman kind of just watching this, it's enjoyable. It's from 2017, 2018, I believe. So it clearly didn't set the world on fire. Wasn't nominated for a Streamy. I don't know if it won. Again, this is rapid research I was doing. But, yeah, if you ask me for my opinion on the show, I would say bad or good, good. Out of 10, 6, 6.5, maybe even a 7. Not as good as some things I've seen, better than a lot of things I've seen, especially the newest stuff. So yeah, if you're looking for something to kill an hour watching, flick on Tubi, check out Automata. It's definitely worth it. Be aware there are a couple of different titles called Automata or Automaton. The one you're looking for is the one that references Dust and stars Basil Harris. And will reference Doug Jones more than Basil Harris. Doug being the bigger name, of course. It does reference Shape of Water when referring to Doug, so I'm thinking this was produced after Shape of Water, which is another film I haven't seen. One thing I will say about Tubi is that Tubi itself is a wonderful service. It's free, shows you the occasional commercial. If you're watching it on a Roku device, you are going to see a lot more commercials than if you watch it on mobile. I can't remember. I think I've maybe watched one or two programs on desktop, and I don't recall if they had quite so many commercials injected. But to be fair, no pun intended, it's a good service, so I do recommend it. It's not exactly a Netflix competitor, but it's got some really, really good and really obscure things on it. So yeah, final thoughts on Automata. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. So 2/3, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, as Meatloaf said. Yeah, other than the slight issue with suspension of disbelief, this is actually a pretty reasonable movie. Again, I will be honest, some of the acting is fairly wooden. Some of it is fairly... There are some parts of the performances that fall flat. Again, these are half points knocked off. Yeah. But all in all, you know, it's not exactly a date night flick, but, you know, if you're looking to kill an hour on a Saturday afternoon, it's not a bad choice. In any case, I hope you're all doing well. Hope you continue to do well, and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye.